Hello, my friends. Thank you for taking some time and coming to listen to what I have to say today. I think what I have to say is important. Let me line up the light here. Think I have to say is important. I wish you were here. I'd offer you some Christmas candies. Someone made a gift of that to me. You know, it's Christmas time. I'm not going to apologize for what I'm doing, for I am in the process of um, doing what I usually do. I want to talk to you about uh, some feelings that I've had about Sunday. You know, I'm up in age. I'm a senior citizen, and I was thinking about it this morning when I got up because I went to my website, and on Sunday morning, when you would expect to, I've been in the habit of getting up, going to church, and hearing, mm, I'm eating late this evening, but I used to be in the habit of getting up and going to church. And I found a nice little, thank you for joining me. I found a nice little website of a young African American man that was talking about the horrendous way that churches are. Hello, Mark. I'm glad that you can join me. Thank you for coming. Uh, I really miss going to a building and listening to the man of God break down to me in a form that I could learn something about the divine and apply it to my life. And that would work for me. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When I go to church, I don't, at least I didn't. And I spent my whole adult from 23 years old until 2016. I'm now going on 80. I'll be 80, Lord permits, in February. And I have never gone to church to be lifted up in my spirit. The mere fact that I woke up in the morning and I'm breathing and that I can ingest food the way I'm doing now. I'm eating, what is it, healthy beans and noodles, kind of like a soup thing, because I don't feel like eating what. And I was watching football today, but after I watched the Dallas Cowboys lose terribly to the Buffalo Bills, which I'm happy to see. Mm, that was wonderful. For those of you that are Cowboy fans, I'm sorry. Your team just wasn't up to it at all. Dak couldn't get anything going. And I was going to watch the Jaguars and the Falcons or whatever the other team was. But I thought, and I said, John, you didn't come on and answer the question why you don't like going to church. Now, this is not um, an accusation against any particular ministry that I know about and that I used to attend. I just cannot find one man of God that's going to get up and peel open that book. I mean, like, I gotta say it. I did it, and you don't have to. I mean, it's like if I went to a lecture on anything, on engineering. I don't want to go and hear the speaker tell his wife to stand up and ask me how pretty she looks. I don't need the speaker accommodating certain people in the room that possibly uh, helps him live by announcing that this person gives so much money. Nor do I go to church to see bombastly ignorant behavior. Mm-mm. No. And I honestly search for a Christian ministry, or at least one, because I read the Bible. I'm not Muslim, and if I were Muslim, I'd read the Quran on a regular basis, and instead of having my Bible there handy, I'd have a Quran. If I were a Buddhist, I would have Buddhist writings and from the people that believe in Buddhism. If I were a Sikh, whatever religion that I believed in, I would have a book there, and I would quote from the book someone in that book, someone that believes something about that book. And if it, because the Bible is a transliteration of at least 3 foreign languages that I do not read fluently. I've only studied maybe 100 words in the Greek to get clarification over the 30 or 40 years. I'm being truthful about it. I'm not going to claim to be this scholar that knows everything about this book, because I don't. I don't believe everything about this book because I am a logical person. I believe in logic. I believe in rational intuitivism, and I'm not a subjective theorist. I don't believe in subjective truth because it cannot be depended upon. The subjectiveness of truth changes from time to time. And I am interested in cognitive dissonance. In other words, if I go to a room to listen to someone try to tell me about the divine or what the divine is saying, that person must be rational to me. That would be like me taking any course in, oh, my dog just came in. Hi, Hardcore. How are you this evening? Come here. Come here. Come here, boy. Come here. Can you jump up so the people can see you? You want me to put that down? So come here. Come here. Jump up. Jump up. Come here. There you go. That's Hardcore. He just came in. How you doing, boy? You smell this bean soup? You can't have any. You can't have any. Okay, so my dog. I love the little dog. But the black church, because I'm a black man, and I went to an installation of a pastor of a black church. I'll tell you the name of the church. Zion Hill Missionary Baptist Church here in Los Angeles, very near to where I live. They recently ordained a young man as the new senior teacher of the church. There were a number of years that the church was without a pastor, and they're search committee took an awful long time to find someone that was capable of leading that institution. Now, hear me. And I hope that as you tune in, because you know, PJ, I'm not going to give you a line of BS. I'm not going to lie to you. That's one of the qualifications of a person that is speaking for the character and the benefit of a divine deity that really cares for the people that believe that he is intuitively involved in helping these human beings get better. I don't see the church today, the African American church today, as an institution that can help people get better. And please, as you listen to this and tune into it, I would greatly appreciate if you contacted me and let me know if you disagree with me. I stand corrected if I need to be corrected. If you think that I'm wrong in this area, you can contact me and send me a note after this uh, YouTube Live finishes. All right. And I'm not going to apologize again for eating in front of you. I'm a senior citizen that's been living long enough to let you know that when I get hungry, I have to eat. And this is very good bean soup. Maybe the sodium content is a little high, but I'll drink water. And I'm 79. I don't feel like cooking. I feel like just going to the cupboard and eating a bowl of soup. I've always been a modest person when it comes to eating and living. I'm in the same house that I lived in when I pastored. Moved in this house in 1974. I'm still here. I didn't need anything bigger. Why does a preacher need a larger house than you? Why does a preacher's children have to go to the better universities and learning institutions than your children attend? Why is it that the pastor's wife, if he's a man, why is she called the first lady? Is she? These are questions. Come Sunday, I'm wondering, do you go to the institution that you attend, and are you made to feel marginalized in some degree or another because of, let me put a little bit more light on this, okay, because of what you may have or what you don't have? Do you feel like that? Or do you feel like when you go to church that everybody in the building are human beings on the same level as all of you? Thank you, Mark. As all of you contend to find out what the speaker is attempting to say to you, and you ask questions, why is he saying it? Oh, I thought about a lot of things this morning when I got it, because I woke up, I had a very busy weekend. I went to a wonderful breakfast at a friend's house on yesterday, Saturday, and Friday night. One of my sons that I love so much invited me to be a guest at his company's job for their Christmas dinner, and it was a wonderful plate. I went out, met some wonderful people around the table, and it so reminded me when I was a pastor, because I've always loved to meet and speak with people and be around people. It's a wonderful feeling to be around people. Why is it when you go to church today, there's so much friction in the church? Why is there class differences in the church? Why, like I asked earlier, why is there this difference between the pastor's children and your children? What makes his wife better than your wife? What makes him better than you? I understand he needs a special parking space at the church, because if he gets there right before it's time to get up behind the pulpit, he needs somewhere to park. He shouldn't have to park around the block and walk. I mean, the man has been studying and praying and have you on his heart all week. Because if you look at any of my YouTube sermon clips, especially the ones that were seasonal, I have a sermon up there called The Mary Factor, where I talk about what the biblical Virgin Mary had to have gone through to prepare to have this baby that she did not have intercourse with a man to have. Now, that takes an awful lot of brains to kind of let that sink in, because we know that you can't have a baby unless you had intercourse with the opposite sex and you were impregnated and carried the fetus for at least 9 months. You had to have prenatal care, to eat healthily, have the right kind of food in order for the baby to be intelligent and strong. We know what that's about. But now when you go to church and they say Mary was a virgin, she had never known a man, and she had a baby, and it's all in the Bible. It's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in this book right here. I taught from this for years. Now, if I, and I'm talking about me, if I were a liar, I would teach you that story, but really, I didn't believe it. I wasn't that man. I'm still not that man. There's a lot of things about that story about the virgin having the baby that are yet questionable to me, and I still question it. I do not, through blind faith, just believe that. Now, let me tell you why, and I'm going to tell you how to think through an axiom such as that. Because even though I'm a retired pastor, I'm still a thinking one. Mark, thank you for hanging around. And Mark, if you hear anything crazy behind what I say, I want you to challenge me on it, because you can type in the question and say, yeah, but PJ, boom. I don't mind people questioning me, challenging me. Have you found, and I'll come back to that dialogue, have you found that most pastors in these churches are you don't question me? If you don't believe this, you can leave here and go somewhere else. But wait a minute, you already taken the man's mother and his grandmother's money. You tricked some of them out of the deed of their house. You've told them that you're some kind of ecclesiastical bishop that has a hierarchy over their spiritual lives, because they are dumb and ignorant and inadequate to understand that. Uh, Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Because you see, Mark never attended a church that I pastored. But if he's looked at any of my work, and he's known me for a good number of years, and he knows that I'm not giving you a line. First of all, the man of God cannot be a BSer. He can't do that. Oh, he can have friends that he plays jokes on. He can have a group of people that he doesn't necessarily care for, and he may speak down about them because he's laughing at their lollipop theology that they put on the scene. I think it ridiculous that anyone would speak to a black man or a black woman and camouflage their truth and try to tell them something that is totally unbelievable. All right. Now, Mark tells me something here, and I'm going to share it with those of you that are not in the reading mode. And I appreciate the other person that came online to identify yourself if you want to. You guys know I don't look for large crowds. I don't even let you know when I'm coming on. If you have it plugged in your phone, hey, PJ, come Sunday. What do I look for on Sunday? I look for somebody to open up this book and to tell me what God is saying to me, how my life can be better. Don't come on here and tell me I owe God 10%. Don't come on asking me if I want to be on the board of deacons. Don't come on telling me that you're going to measure my spirituality by how much money I give, or how cute my wife or my husband looks, or how nice my children are. I want to hear about the God that created me, that gave me a brain to think. What do I do come Sunday? We as Black people need to come back to that. Mark says, I grew up a Baptist. You can tell my church was a type that couldn't question the pastor or anyone in the church. What kind of place is that you'd give a dime to that you couldn't question him? I don't understand. You paying the pastor. Some of these jokers are getting $200,000 and $300,000 a year and can retire after 10 years from getting up talking about Mary had a baby and wasn't the doctor surprised, and everybody's laughing. Now what they do is they get up and they twerk and they twist and they fall out and throw towels over their legs. What decent woman would fall out in church and have her wig fall off of her head and everybody laughing at her? What kind of institution? Don't get me started. Wait a minute. Come Sunday. Someone asked me about Carlton Pearson. He passed away. And they asked me, do you believe in his teachings on hell? And I said, some of them, yeah. Now let me tell you what I believe. I do not believe that there is a pit larger than the planet Saturn somewhere that God, in his angry disposition, is going to put the majority of humankind in this burning sulfur pit to hurt a body that will never burn up because they do not confess Jesus as they know Jesus. Because I'm convinced that most people don't know the Jesus I know. Wait a minute. Someone's writing me. You couldn't even question why there is a white Jesus and other disciples on the stage. You couldn't. You know what, man? Let me tell you something. On the church that I pastored and the church that I came up in, my pastor did not have any pictures of any icons of the Christian faith. I've never known J.B. Stanley to do that. And I asked my pastor once, why don't you have pictures of the saints? He said, man, don't nobody know how them people look. And then he says, and they sure wasn't white. They were not white men. If you just look at where Israel is now and look at the fighting that's going on over there, you didn't see no white European with blonde hair and blue eyes. That's a lie. So I never believed that. All I know is this. Now, wait a minute. And you couldn't question it? You couldn't even discuss it? Why would you even go there and give your money? Well, because they threaten you with a hell if you don't give your money. I used to tell them on the radio, when I was on the radio in the 90s. You can check with Dr. Harley Howard. Look up that name, Dr. Harley Howard. I don't think he cares for me that much right now. I still love the man. He was my radio co-host Dr. Howard is one of the finest men that ever taught the Bible. He didn't teach me very much Bible because I'd already had my master's in um, divinity degree from Talbot Theological Seminaries, and I was taught by my mentor, Reverend James B. Stanley. I was taught by him 15 years before I taught a Bible study in the church. That's how rigid it was. He let me teach the little children in Sunday school. But no, 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 no. He said, yes, of course, Mark, they use scare tactics. But what you should have realized is when you were there is they can't prove their scare tactics on you at all. Let's go back to the death of Carlton Pearson. The big controversy was my cousin called me and said, do you think that Carlton Pearson went to heaven? I said, when? When? Because they had some crazy preacher on the air that said that he died and went to heaven and came back. And he was on that infamous television station, TBN, talking that trash when I was a young man in my 70s. What's his name? Duplantis. That was his name. He said he died and went to heaven and came back, and they had this man on television. And my wife and I used to look at TBN, and we we would just laugh our asses off looking at that foolishness and asking a question, how could anyone believe that? And so, there's just so much foolishness, and that is why an intelligent person, and you don't need a college degree to think through that. All you need to do is to be a rationalist. Think. I don't know why I haven't finished answering my question on hell. I don't know why God would send a person like me to a scorching, blistering, bubbling soup pit full of all the souls that ever lived on this earth that never even heard of Jesus, to this punishing, eternal, blasphemous pit for not mentioning the name of God. That would make God a kind of a crazy, I'm trying to think of the word. It would make him a lunatic and the people following him on that same level. And that's not me. Now, to answer your question, what happens to the people like, I have to mention the dead people, Al Capone, who was instrumental in taking the lives of other human beings? I forget that African leader's name that was killing a lot of his own people in that country in Africa and recruited young kids to go in and, like when the Tutsis was trying to kill the other African tribe. Well, John, what about where are they going? I don't know where their eternal soul is going. I have no idea. But I do know this. If I would ever, y'all listen to me, and this is how you know you good with God. Have you ever seen those clips on where they have it? I have to, because I have a phone here, and when I look at it, I have to go to my phone and see. Instagram, what's the other one? X, I guess that's the one that Elon Musk got. And if you look at all of these, Facebook and everything, everybody got their opinion like me. Everybody's talking. That's why I do what I do, because I want you guys to know that some of your elders are still thinking out here. Just because there's Instagram and all this, and oh, my friends come on Instagram and they said this to me, and oh, here's one of my friends telling me I got to say it. I know who you talk to because I gave him your number. All right. Yes. See, I had friends that still communicate with me, and he just wrote me and said, guess who I talked to? I know who he talked to because I gave him his number. And I know that he would have loved to have a three-way conversation with me talking with him. And if some of you knew who that was, you would say, I wouldn't talk with him at all. I wouldn't waste my time with him. I know you wouldn't. That's because you let other people think for you. That's one thing I've never done. I've never allowed anyone else to think for me. Now, if I ever get Alzheimer's or something like that, where I can't think for myself, I'll need someone to think for me. I just messed on myself. I need my diaper changed. Y'all think for me and change my diaper. I can still maneuver like that. Now, check this out. I've never hurt anybody. I've never caused anybody's life not to go forward. I have helped enough human beings in my life. The young man that just sent me the email and the young man that I gave his number to, I helped both of them live and eat and put shelter over their heads and help them do life. Now, when I die, because I lied one day about something, I'm going to go to a scorching fire pit to boil for all of eternity? No, I've never accepted that dogma because I asked a pastor friend of mine. He told me that I was going to hell because I came out and told him that I've always been gay since I've been, maybe that's none of your business, but I told him, and he said, "You going to hell for that." And I just looked at him and said, "No, I'm not." Like a lot of people would look at Carlton Pearson and say, "Oh, what he said, he's going to hell." No, 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 no. If he took from anyone by false intentions, if he misrepresented the Most High, listen to me, those of you that's going to listen to this long after I'm gone. If you in any way misrepresent the Most High, knowingly in your conscience, knowingly lying, knowingly deceiving, knowingly doing that, because I don't hear preachers talk like that behind the pulpit now. It is as if they're afraid to tell people, and I'm not saying that that'll send you to hell, but I am thinking that there is a divine entity that created the entire universe. I'm just a speck of dust. I am a grain of sand when it comes to familiar knowledge of humanity. That's all I am. I am nothing. You are nothing. But if you bring harm to any human or creature that God has created, I think that if there's a set of men out there setting out to kill every elephant on the planet, I think that there's going to be a judgment for that man or woman that does that, because elephants were not created to be decimated for the ivory that people kill elephants for. I think that when people go out and kill a whole breed of animals to tear the fur off of their backs, to put on their own backs, and to brag in front of other people about the decimation of a culture of animals, that there will be a retribution for that human being. I don't know what it's going to be, how it's going to be, but I believe it's going to be, because I believe that is a part of God's creation. Now, let me deal with the Carlton Pearson. Leave him alone. Did you agree with his ministry when you went there? If you smiled, if you wrote a check for $5, you were happy with what he told you. If he tricked you and the ministry that he led tricked you and you were happy being tricked, tell the truth. Everything he said, I heard it. I agreed with him. See, when I heard him speak, I just smiled. And I said, that's not true. And so when God ordained me, he called me as an apologist. If you don't know what an apologist is, let me see if Google can answer that for you. Google, what is a Christian apologist?
Here's what I found.
Okay, that's what Google found. See? Now let me read it to you. What is a Christian apologist? I'll ask it again. What is a Christian apologist?
Here's what I found.
All right. It says Christian apologetics. Listen to this. And this is off of your phone. And so you guys can really get that. Thank you, Google. Christian apologetics is a branch of Christian theology that defends.
Okay. I found this on the web from
No, I was
apologetics.
reading it. Thank you. Shut up, please. All right. I know that. Oh my goodness. Okay. Christian apologist. He says it is a verbal defense in speech or in defense of a branch of Christian theology that defends Christianity. That was my primary task when I was a minister. I was a pastor of a church, but I was a Christian apologist. That's why I came on the radio. I was arguing for the defense of a religious belief system. It is my opinion that most African American pastors have not been correctly trained in apologetics and have no idea what they're talking about when they speak to the people that come to the building that they speak in. It goes on and says Christian apologetics has taken many forms over the centuries, starting with the Apostle Paul in the early church and the patristic writers, excuse me, such as Origen. Whenever I talk, you know, my throat is getting old. Such as Origen. Origen is the one to whom I got my definition of sin from. Sin is the lack of conformity to the revealed will of God and the refusal of an individual to be related to his creator by faith. I do not believe that I have been guilty in defining what sin is. So therefore, if there were a burning hell of hot coals, I'm not going there because I'm going to tell the truth about what I learned about the uh, uh, lifestyle that gave me life for most of my adult life. And because I would never get up behind the pulpit and say something that I didn't know to be true in this book. And a white man did not write this book, nor did a black man write this book, nor did a Asian man write this book, and nor did a Latino man write this book. I believe, see, I'm one of those guys that believe that some of the writings in this book, not all of them, because men have distorted some of this stuff. And that's what you're seeing when you look at church today. It's a distortion. And people have twisted what the book says in order to gain and get a living and to manipulate people. And that's why religion is an enemy of the people. All right. And that's why I don't feel good about going to church these days, because I need to hear from the book. I love the people that sometimes I go listen to, but I'm not hearing from the book. I'm hearing from them. And that doesn't do anything for my soul. I need to hear from the book. I'm not trying to tear down the church. I'm trying to say, think. What else does this thing say? It says, theologues such as Origen, Augustine, Hippo, Justin Martyr, and Tertullian. Right. Then continuing with such writers as Thomas Aquinas, the famous, I taught his dogma in Philosophy 1, in Introduction to Philosophy in the college system. St. Thomas Aquinas, of course, and many other men. And then there was Pascal, Christian apologist during the 17th century. In the modern period, Christianity was defended through efforts of many authors, such as John Henry Newman, and they're given all these names, and it gives the history of apologetics. Well, you see, I believe that most pastors that are teaching should have a background in that, or they're going to have a tendency to get up and give the people their opinion about God. Yeah, scare tactics. Well, they use the scare tactics, but a grown man can't scare me with something that's Tommy rot. It's like when my pastor friend told me, I asked him, we were going back and forth over the phone, and he's pastoring a good-sized church. It's a mega church. I said, hey, friend, would you ever invite me by to speak at your church behind your lectern? You don't know what he told me? And I hope he watches this one day. He said, hell no. I said, what? He said, not you. Why not? And then he explained to me that I have a way of teaching the Bible in a way that everybody knows exactly what it says and what it means. And he said, you can hurt my welfare. No. Would you not think that the goal of every man and woman of God is not to protect their business welfare, but the hearts of the people that they say God has charged them to watch for? Huh? Well, I told the preacher friend of mine, don't worry, I don't want to darken the doors of that place because I could feel the deception. See, I still have no tolerance for ignorance. Why do I do this? No, not eat the bean soup. I do that because I got to live. Why do I do what I do? You know, you may be saying, PJ, why do you do it? You're no longer pastor in the church. You have no influence. These guys make themselves bishops, potentates, and all that kind of stuff. I love you, Mark. Mark just said that this preacher doesn't want me to open their eyes. How can he say he's going to be with God for an eternity in the heavenly bliss, flying with angels' wings, and he don't want to help the black people that he pastor by opening up their eyes? That's what I'm saying. Because when the Spirit, oh, I want y'all to hear this, for those of you that don't think that I'm a genuine man of God, that the Spirit of the living God told me one thing when he called me to preach, because I was terrified in my mind when I knew that God was speaking with me and trying to direct me into this way to speak for him. And I was 23 years old, and I cried and I said, who are you? What is this? Let me explain it. It wasn't a voice from heaven. It wasn't my pastor telling me, boy, you got to go to school and you got to be baptized and you got to do this. It wasn't a group of clerics getting together said, now, we're going to put you in our denomination. And if you're in this, now wait, granted, I had to sign a document like that when I went to Biola University, Biola Talbot. They would not give you a master's degree unless you, you know, signed your name or spoke with one of their counselors and said you believe in the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and you believe. I said, well, I guess that's what Christianity is. Yeah, I believe it. I want to go to your school so that I can learn everything. Yes, I believe it. But as I went to school, sat in their classroom, listened to those theologues, and all my teachers weren't white. I had some black instructors and some Hispanic and Asian instructors. All of us was dogmatized to believe these things. Well, when the things came that was a little bit too abrupt and ridiculous for me to wrap my finger around, I rejected that. That's why I still do these YouTube lives. I'm hoping that somebody will come across my website sometime and pay attention and just think with me. I'm not trying to turn you against religion. I'm not trying to turn you against your mother's First Baptist Church and the Baptist tradition. And man, I love when I was pastor in the Baptist church, especially when it came time to have dinners. They'd make dinners, and all them sisters cooking the meals. They bring the best food to church, but my wife cooked the best food. And really, I didn't eat all them people's food because I'm not a Southern boy. I was born and raised right here in Los Angeles, and I didn't eat hog maws, chitlins, and other kind of foods that Southern people are inclined to eat. I've never had a palate for that. I would take some plates home with me. The dear sisters would cook some nice food, and I'd take the plates home, but I wouldn't eat it. I had a wife for 35 years. My wife was Asian. She was Filipino. She cooked me some delicious Asian food, and I was only accustomed of eating from my wife's hand. But since I was a pastor of the church, when the sisters cooked, I'd take a plate home, but I never allowed any of them to bring pots of food to my house because I knew I wouldn't eat it. I no, you know, the fellowship. I appreciated it when the sisters made cookies or cakes and tea cakes and things like that. But the food that they ate that because it's not the preacher's role to get the people to eat what he eats and to buy the kind of car he drives and to dress in the kind of clothes he dressed in. I had a young associate pastor, Gregory, and Gregory taught me how to dress like a pastor because I've never been a fashion consultant. Well, look what I got on now. I mean, I didn't care about that. You know what I was concerned about? Truth. What is it going to take for God to help my people growing up in the middle of the inner city of Los Angeles? What do I do since my pastor died in 1985 and Los Angeles at that time had become an Hispanic city? Hispanics bought all the houses, all the businesses around where that church was located on Jefferson near Central Avenue in Los Angeles. My main criterion was figuring out, how do I keep these brothers out of jail because somebody had flooded this city with crack cocaine and everybody that wasn't united to the church was getting high on some crack? How could I be an instrument to help my people? That's all I was concerned with when I became a pastor. I wasn't concerned about joining some denomination and to make myself, wait a minute, I was a preacher. God called me to be a preacher. He didn't call me to be no bishop. I looked up the term in the Greek. I couldn't see the affinity of it at all. These men made themselves bishops and let somebody. Do you remember the late, what was the preacher's name? He had gotten in too deep with them young boys in the church. Eddie Long. He's dead now. And they picked him up in a king's chair in the church. Picked him up, and I forget how many men carried that. You can probably find that mess on the internet. And I said, what have these black people, what have these Baptist people done? Don't sell yourself short. I knew preachers here in this town that was Eddie Long's buddies. They knew he was wrong. They wouldn't tell him. They wouldn't tell him he was wrong. I did. I came on the radio almost every Sunday night. Me and my friend, Dr. Harley Howard. And we told him, name of Harley's show was Night Light. You know, when you go to bed, you have a night light next to your bed because Harley came on late. And we came on at midnight. And what we would do is like that guy that they had on, Hank Hanegraaff. He called himself the Bible Answer Man. Hank was spending money, buying Lexuses and everything else with ministry money and everything else, and just jealousy and madness. And everybody that studied the Bible try to make themselves apologists. The ministry that I headed was stolen because the people was looking at the money that they could possibly get. Some of you, if you've yet found me on YouTube, that's what happened. You know what happened. But when I was on the radio, I told them, they're going to lie to you and do everything to get you to send them money. And I said, and when you don't hear me on any radio station anymore doing this, you know they got rid of me. And they did. Lied all on me. I never lied once when I was behind that pulpit in my life. I can speak before God on that. Never lied once. Never looked at any parishioners' money. I remember I had members, they would want to give parties for their older relatives, and they'd invite me to the birthday parties and things. And I usually had a week schedule full of Bible activities, meaning this. Let me see if I can remember the days. Let's start with Sunday. Sunday morning, I was there at 6 o'clock in the morning, setting up for the 10 o'clock worship service because we had a war room. We call it the war room upstairs at the old vet, 976 East Jefferson. You type that in the Google search and you're going to see an apartment house because they tore the building down where most of my professional preaching was done. And my mentor built the church, Reverend James B. Stanley. You see that ring on my finger? That was James B. Stanley's graduation ring from Pepperdine University. I wear it because our birthstone, he was born in February and I was born in February. And his dear wife, before she passed away, gave me his graduation ring and told me that Jake told me upon his death to give it to you, John. And he ordained me. And he knew of my background of being gay, though we never spoke about it. Because I told him I'm going to be faithful to this book and to everything that can hold lives together and not get involved in controversy. I tell some of the men that I know now, I'm really surprised I was surprised at adulterers in the church that I pastored. I'm talking about men that were having relations with other women beside their wives while in the church. That was unspeakable to me. something that you wouldn't dare do, and you're a cleric? No, I'm not going to sit here on my YouTube live and say that I have never had thoughts like that. I have never had an ambition to do things like that. I'm not a perfect man. I've never met a perfect man. And if you ever meet a so-called preacher that tells you that he's perfect, he's a liar from the pit. I didn't say from the pit of hell. He's lying. Because this nature that you are born with, and I know what Christianity teaches about your nature being changed. God is not thinking about changing your nature as he is in enlightening you to what your nature will bring you to. I still minister to young men, love them when they're early 20s because they're ripe for knowledge. They're ripe to listen to something, listen deeply, analyze that axiom. And a lot of our young black men, they aren't going to pay $40,000 and $50,000 to go to college. I hope that they can tune in to me and I'll give them some insight in living. I'm going to tell you, I got one young man that I know, and I'm going to mention no names because simply put, it's none of your damn business. I have one young man that's working 2 jobs right now, making buku money as a professional. He's making more money than I'll never make in my entire life. You think I'm jealous of him? You think I'm asking him to give me a dime? You think I'm going to tell you about his business? It's none of your business. You can do what he did if you choose the right path. And one of the things that you have to get down, I'm thinking about a young man that I know now. I love this man dearly. And he's been taken out of the regular realm of society because he did not tell the truth. I look at these TikTok things and I look at these youngsters, and here you are going up to somebody, slugging somebody, knocking them out, and people are recording you. Don't you know that's going to get to the authorities? And your life is ruined. Like, what the hell you doing? I don't know what you're doing that for. And then the girlfriends you got screaming and telling you to continue to beat him up, and you beating him up. Wait a minute. I was watching the what's that thing where they have these people get in the octagon and fight each other? I was watching that. I think it was Friday night. And they had the women, 2 women, a blonde and a brunette, fighting. And yes, the UFC, that's what it is. Thanks, Mark. I was watching that, and they had these women fighting, and I said, and I never watched I'm watching this fight, man, and these women are drawing blood, man. One woman kept kicking the other one in her inner thigh, in her leg, and the leg turned red, and the woman could barely stand on it. And the woman that had the thigh that was bruised kept punching the other woman in her face, looked like split her nose and blood's pouring down. And even the commentators were saying, "Ooh, ooh, ooh." Yes, they were bloody, Womanati. They were bloody. And I watched it. And I said, this is what I said when I watched it. I said, Jesus, no. And kept hitting that woman in her face. And I said, no. You know what? I don't know who they gave the battle to. I turned it off. I couldn't watch it because my heart, women are not supposed to do that. What happened to us? Who okayed that show? What happened to us? Yeah. Oh, so you saw the fight too. Okay. Yeah. Both of them were a mess. I, 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 I said, God, what have we done here in this country? What have we done? Now I know that there's freedom, people, and I'm not an old dude out of my mind. What if that was my daughter, my cousin, my wife? There's easier ways to make money decently. And what made that thing so horrible is that it's on film. People will be able to watch that forever. Now, you want to know if Carlton Pearson's going to hell. No, no, no. Whoever booked that thing, whoever booked it and okayed it and put it on, and think about the young people that saw that. I'm telling you, you was waiting for the main, event. I couldn't watch any more of it. Then I kept peeping back and saw their faces, and I said, nope, I'm out. That's right. Because no one in his right mind that loves humanity is going to watch something like that and relish in a woman beating another woman like that to a pulp with blood coming out her face. Man and woman are of both honor and way. God designed us to be and to operate. Yes, they don't want to operate the way God designed us to. If I'm angry with somebody, if I have an enemy, sometimes my young friends are around and I like to watch, and you should watch television because you can see a lot of what happened in World War II in color now because they can colorize those old black and white films, and they're finding other films in color when Europe was being liberated. And of course, if you know the history of the end of World War II, yes, you can ask me any theological question that you want. That's why I come on, and you can ask me any question and I'll answer it if I possibly can. But I watch those um, old war films, and the young men asked me, why do you always watch those films? I said, I can go to Berlin and see Berlin a week before they tow that city up with bombs. I want to see the Berliners' faces when they were all going Sieg Heil as their leader was massacring millions of gypsies, blacks, and Jews, and anything other than blonde hair, blue eyes, pure blooded, whatever they want to call these people. That was inhumane. And I also uh, watch World War II. Let me close my door because the TV just came on and I don't want to interfere with that. Love you, son. All right. Thanks. Because sometimes people come by my house and they want to watch a movie and they don't want to hear me. But ask your question. Any question you have theologically, you can ask me. Now, it's one thing to watch a football game of two opposing teams, defense and offense, and you got all the lifting them weights and muscles and everything. But I never watch an all-male football team play against females. And they hitting them the way they hitting them on that gridiron. I never watch that. We couldn't watch that. Well, let me read the question here. Can a person miss out heaven because they may have taught something deemed heretical? My friends and I were having a discussion about Carlton Pearson. Some condemn him to hell. I'm conflicted. Well, the only person that can know that they deserve hell is the person that has defined sin correctly. Origen, approximately 250 years after the traditional Christ died on the cross, the brothers of Christendom would meet on a regular basis, the bishops that they called them, over certain churches, Smyrna and all these other places. You can read about it. They had a conference and they met and they were trying to define what sin is. Because when you go to the Black Baptist Church, they say sin is missing the mark. Sin is saying that you don't believe in Jesus. Sin is not listening to the pastor. None of those things will send you to any place of burning sulfur. So Origen wrote this sentence. This is what sin is. It is the lack of conformity to the known will of God and the refusal of the creature to be related to the Creator by faith. In other words, if you do not conform to what you know God said, and hell didn't come on the Christian scene till hundreds of years after Christianity got started. Even though Jesus spoke of hell, if you do the proper transliteration, and Carlton Pearson knew that because I listened to his teaching, there's a Gehenna. A Gehenna was a place for the dead, for the Hebrew people, not just the Jewish people, because when you say the Jews, you're talking about the religious sector of Israel. That's why all that fighting over there now. Everybody's all confused because they got it all mixed up. So no, I don't think that Carlton would go to hell unless he knew that what he was teaching was a lie. What I mean by that is this. If he knew that tithing was heretical and he taught the people that if they didn't tithe, God was going to punish them, and if that person gave their money to a religious organization and their family suffered a tremendous loss, even to the point that it turned someone's life off of the course to success, to danger, like taking people's pension, like having those old people look at that infamous TV station and give all their money to that, to people like Benny Hinn and all these guys blowing into microphones and stuff. Those guys, I believe there's a special place of punishment or torment for their souls. I don't know how it's going to take place because the God that I worship is a loving, faithful God, and he cannot let that get by, like he cannot let it get by if I blaspheme him. All right. Thank you for the question. Here's another question. When you pastored, did you do the bread and wine every first Sunday of the month? Yes, I did. Because the people that elected me as a pastor were doing that and expected me to do the communion. But what I did when I did it, I said, I'm not going to tell the story every Sunday. I said, the scripture says in the New Testament, do this in remembrance of Jesus. And I told him, I remember from the first Sunday that I did it when I was in this church, but it's tradition. And we may have someone here that's never done it, so we can do it again. But if you miss communion, nothing is going to happen. As a matter of fact, you can have crackers and Kool-Aid in the house and do it in commemorance to Jesus. It doesn't necessarily have to be grape juice or red wine. All right. Another one. Reverend, like Mike Murdoch and Copeland. I don't know who Murdoch, Kenneth Copeland, if you're talking about him, I have, this man is a heretic. Very similar to Kenneth Hagin, who is dead. with their love of money. You know, the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. I don't even like having a lot of money. It's Christmas time. I have a few fellas that short on money and they contact me and they say, hey, PJ, you got a couple of extra dollars? I tell them, man, I'm just living off my whatever, Social Security. I don't make money like I used to make money. But if I have $10 or $20 and they need a helping hand, I just cash app them. I send it to them. That's the kind of a man I am. I've always been that way. Kenneth Copeland, Kenneth Hagin, do you remember that infamous scene when the reporter asked Copeland about him buying a jet? Do you remember how his eyes was gawking all out? Do you remember Hagin, who had them people laughing and acting the fool in the church? And they got so many other people. Yes, of course. He got upset. He got upset because she caught him in his mess. And then he tried to curse that poor woman. I would have laughed and said, you know, you are a heretic from the pit. And anybody following. But here's the problem that I have. I know that religionists are going to follow because they don't think. A person that's into religion does not think for themselves. They need someone else to think for them. When I pastored a church, I never thought for the people that I pastored. If you go to any of my preaching or teaching clips on YouTube, on my page, you will not hear me threatening. I would tell people that if they're going to live raunchy around me, I would rather them not be of the church. I remember there was one time, and I told you guys about this earlier, there was a white guy that was pastoring the church. He had a lot of black members, and he got involved in some scandal. And these people were into this white minister because he was very well versed in scripture. And so they left the black church and was following this white pastor. The white pastor, it was about the time when Kenneth Hagin was denying Fred Price because if something came out, he wouldn't allow his relatives to marry a black person. And so this pastor kind of felt that way. So a lot of the black people started coming over to Olivet, the church that I was pastoring. Now, some of our members got all happy. Oh, John, look at the members you have. And I was sitting in my study one day and I said, no, I'm going to have to cut this off. Because, see, these people know that I'm correctly teaching the word of God. But if I stumble and fall one time, they'll throw me to the wolves. And so I told him, I said, all you people coming here from this other church, raise your hand. They did. And I asked them, why did you come here? Well, we heard you on the radio and we think that you can teach us. I said, but have you gone and had a conversation with the pastor that you had? Well, no, we don't want. I said, I will not receive your membership here until you go and tell him why you're leaving him. Tell him to his face. Because if you come here and find something wrong, I want you to tell me to my face why you're leaving here. And if you catch me in a lie, I need you to tell me about it because I'm not scared of you, don't need your money. And my wife got a job working as a clerk for the school district and she'll feed me. All right? Dumb people left and the members of my congregation got mad. You haven't. Mark, you haven't met a preacher that is transparent the way I am. That lets you know where we are spiritually. I'm going to tell you, the real man of God, if you challenge him and he was wrong, oh, wow. The real man of God would never get upset if you challenge him. The real man of God would say, Mark, brother, I didn't know that. Let me research this. Like, let me give you an example. Okay. Transparency and pastor is not synonymous. Really? You guys got to be kidding me. If the pastor is not transparent, why would he expect people to come and put money in that plate and listen to him? I remember once Lucy had died, and of course, we had insurance on each other. I had more on me than her. And the insurance that I had on her, I didn't need it for anything, but I've always wanted to drive a luxury car. So I bought a 2011 Lexus convertible. I forget what year it was. It was somewhere in 2005 or 6 that I bought that car. I only had it 3 or 4 years. Got rid of it because it was a used Lexus and it kept breaking down because it was getting old. But it was a convertible and I called it the Silver Bullet. And I remember once when I drove it to church and it was on the lot, one of the young African American members came out and he saw me getting in it and he said, "What is this for? I thought you said that a pastor shouldn't." That's right. It was an SC400. That's what it was. Thank you. And he said, "What is this all about?" I said, "What do you mean?" "I thought that you said that a pastor isn't supposed." I said, "The car is an old car. And I've always wanted a car. And I live in America. And I have money." And I took all that insurance money and added another $10,000 that I had saved up to buy it. And I bought it for cash. And the car was paid for. I said, "What's your problem?" You know what? I would leave the church and go out there and find scratches all on my car after services from the members. I'm not lying to you. Scandalous stuff. I have never experienced anything like that. Yes, they were beautiful. Mr. Toyota, who is dead now, that was in 2011 was the first year that they came out and they stopped making the commercials with that long hood and that back. Man, that was, and you know what? I gave the car up because I could not afford to keep getting it. I had to get some front end struts put on it because when your struts wear out. Well, it had cost me over $1,300 to get it done. I took it to the Lexus dealership down in Wilshire, and they charged me all that money. And I got mad one day because I was driving it down Wilshire Boulevard, and it was hard to steer. The steering was off, and I said, "Oh no!" I immediately drove to a Mini Cooper dealership, drove in there, looked at a Mini Cooper, and said, "Give me that. What you got for a trade-in? Come here." Took him outside and said, "That Lexus." And he said, he looked at this Lexus is in good shape. I said, "How much will you give me?" And he told me how much. And I said, "Right now." He said, "If you give me this Lexus, you can drive that Mini Coupe off the lot." I drove that car off the lot. I've never been a materialist. Never been a materialist. And these pastors talking to you like that, they're taking you on a Fruit Loop trail. Keep your money and live your life. I don't know whether there was, you know what? I hate to call them haters in the pews because I loved all those people. Why would you be against me because I bought this after my wife of 35 years died? And what are you doing to me? And that's why I call this cast Come Sunday. What are you looking for on Sunday when you go to church? What kind of man, God forbid, a woman, because how can a woman tell a man how to, she can't. But, that sounds childish, but they are doing that. And I told the people, this is my car. Yes, they scratched my car up. I know because I didn't have the scratches on it when I went there. I polished my own car. I polished my own car, buffed my own car, never took my car to get it detailed. I am old school. I detail my own car. I had one member of the church, a retired cop. We used to love going to the Monterey Jazz Festival, and he said, I'll buy the hotel room and pay for all your food and everything if you, and he owned a nice Jaguar. He owned his own car. He said, if you drive, because he didn't like driving to Monterey. And when I was on the highway one time going up there, he said, how fast will this thing go? I pulled over and put the top down and rolled my windows up, and I got back on the highway, and it was on that strip of highway where they had airplanes doing the traffic, you know, didn't have to worry about a CHP. So I'm riding in the car and the top is down, and he was a white guy and I'm a black guy, and he's a retired cop. And so I said, well, if one of them pull up on me, well, I'm riding. Then I said, how fast you think I'm going? He said, oh, about 75, 85 miles an hour. I said, look at my odometer thing. I was going 125 miles an hour. You didn't even feel the air. The thing was designed for that. And the car just went down and hugged the highway. I said, that's why I bought this car. I don't want a car when you turn the car, the whole cab leaned over. That's why you buy a luxury car, because it's engineered to be a driving vehicle. And only people that have accomplished great things in their life can afford a car like that. The average man can't afford that. New. That's what I did. Now, if that's a sin to you from speeding, there was nobody behind me, nobody in front of me. I only held that speed for about 5 seconds. Then I eased up to prove the point. Mark says, wasn't like you trying to flaunt. Nuh-uh. Why would I show off what I have? What I have, God gave it to me, and he can take it in a swipe. I have a heater in my house. I have to get it serviced. And I keep telling myself, John, you better get it serviced because you haven't had a service in 2 or 3 years, and that thing can catch flame and burn you up and everything. I've never been a materialist. And any pastor that's a materialist, you need to get away from that. Speeding, I can't judge you. 5 to 10 miles over. Well, good for you, 5 to 10. I wanted to see what that thing could do because I paid all that money for it. And to date, I wish I had that car. I have a picture of it somewhere up on my website, and I have it in one of my hard drives here. I have pictures of it. When I got it, I drove by, showed my daughters and my grandchildren, took them riding in it. I even told my grandson, when I get old and give the car up, I'm going to give it to you. I should have kept it and gave it to him because he's old enough to drive now, and that would have been a perfect gift for him. But I just got frustrated paying for it, and I never made over $35,000 a year in my profession as a pastor. I couldn't afford the upkeep for the sports car. I couldn't. And I've never been a materialist. So when I see you guys are these people that do that for these pastors, I'm saying, why are you doing that? Most of them don't even study for their sermon. You know what they do? They look up an idea. I think I'll talk about hope. 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 Come Sunday, when y'all show up, when y'all empty your coffers, black people need their money now. Black people need their money. If I was smart, I would have held on to my city of Los Angeles job while I pastored and put all the money that I made from the city of Los Angeles in a private bank account and took the $35,000 a year at the peak of my ministry when the church was packed, and I'm doing all that, live off that, let Lucy bank her money, and I'd be rich today. But no, you know what I did? My senior pastor died. He was married. He had a wife. The church elected me as the pastor. What I did is I called the board of deacons together and I said, take a third of my income that you are paying me and draft a check to Mrs. Benny Stanley for the rest of her life as long as I'm pastor of this church. No, I didn't check with my wife because the Bible said if you have widows in the church and they are widows indeed, that the church has to pay for that widow's life. That's in my Bible. I read it. And I told the board to do that. I'm not lying to you. I've never been a whore for money. And if your pastor's not doing that and living like that, come Sunday, when you go there and you embellish him or her with all that materialism and you can barely make it, you've been had. And that's why the friend of mine that went to seminary with me, and I used to preach at his church, I used to go visit him, told me, you will never get behind the pulpit of my church. Let's see what my guys are saying. Do I miss driving? Oh, this weekend. It was so beautiful in Los Angeles. All I could think about was putting the top of that Lexus down and going to you go to my Facebook page and see a picture of this house. That's up in View Park. And you can see the panorama view of Los Angeles. That's what I used to do in that Lexus. I'd drive to the beach with the top down. Everybody looking to see if I was a famous person. Yeah, I was famous, all right. Poor as Job's turkey. But I was enjoying the life I was living because God let me drive around in a used Lexus. I had the pink slip in this office in my file cabinet. It was my car. I was making no notes. And my friends, I had a friend of mine, JT, said, man, are you going to San Diego? Yes, I am. He said, can I ride with you? I said, come on, I'll pick you up. And we rode to San Diego. I would ride people around all the time. Yeah, I miss driving that car. And if anybody want to give me a gift, just find a 2011 Lexus convertible in running condition. I'll get it repainted, and I'll show you how happy I am. Mark says that Malcolm X talked about the issues of the black church in the ballot or the bullet speech. Yeah. Any true African American that loves his company of people would tell the truth. And any true patriot of the patriarchs knows that you cannot be a liar or a whore for your people's money. Because when you that, I'm going to tell you, that person cannot be trusted. You can't. I don't care what excuse you make. I used to talk like that on the radio. And these Christians used to call, oh, Pastor John, you're judging. I said, of course I am. Because the Bible says, judge not lest ye be judged. You know what that means? Don't judge him unless you can stand under the same judgment by which you judging him by. I love you guys. I love you guys that's going to listen to this after I'm going off, because I'll be going off in a couple of minutes. I love you. And I pray that when Sunday comes, if you can't find a building or an edifice where the person is going to teach you about God and how you can be happy and satisfied with your Creator. He's giving you food to eat, a place to lay your head at night, clothes to wear. if you can't say thank you, Lord, and don't worry about all these other things that these religious people try to put on you. I was heartbroken about what I see going on over there. Man, I hear 3 of the hostages from Israel got shot to death by an army that can't even shoot right. People that went crazy over there. And I don't talk about that too much because I don't want to go to YouTube jail about that. I'm not taking say any kind of killing people is wrong. And any preacher, oh my God, this is another 90-minute show and I don't have time. Any preacher that gets behind that pulpit and tries to justify what any nation is doing against the people, like I've been seeing since October the 6th, that preacher is not a real person of God. That preacher is involved in money, commerce, and all that. Because if you a pope, a cleric, a Islamic leader, anything, you got to say, stop messing with them people. But I know we don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear that. Do you remember that? I'm trying to remember, Mark. You got to tell me about Moreno Valley. I drove you out to Moreno Valley? Really? See, my mind, I don't remember every incident that I have with people that I love. I don't remember everything, but I remember the joy that I had. And that's why I'm talking about it on this thing called Come Sunday, because it's Sunday and I miss blessing people's lives. And I'm going to try to do this because I've got to stand off for the tidal wave of foolishness that has taken over the Black church. Tidal wave. Oh, yes. Okay, that's right. Man, I have made so many trips, so many journeys, a wonderful time that I've had with people. Yes, yes. You remember? Yes, you remember that? I had to slow him down. That boy finally got his own car, and I tell him I have to think before I get in the car with him. Yes. Because when you see, everything is a lesson, Mark. It's a lesson. I tell the young men that I'm around today, when you're around me because it's a lesson for you to learn. I don't browbeat them and say you have to live like I live, think like I live. One thing that I've enjoyed in educating that young man is, and he's learned because that was at least 5 years ago. 5 years ago. But Mark, it doesn't seem like I've known you that long. It's because when you know someone and you get to know that person and you communicate with them, especially as a godly man, that person is dear to you. Most of these pastors that pastor these church, they're not dear to their members. They're not dear to them. I used to go by and visit my member's house. Lucy would get upset. She said, "Where are you going tonight?" I said, "I'm going to their house. I'm going to visit him. He wants me to see the new car that he bought." She said, "Why don't you look at," because I want to spend personal time with him. I spend time with most of my men all the time. The older deacons told me, "You spend too much time with them people." You know what one of them told me? "You need to spend more time with your wife." One of them even said to another deacon of mine, they both dead now, so I can talk about it. You know what the deacon said? I'm going to tell you. The deacon said, "I don't know why Pastor John is spending all that time with these young men and young families in that church when he can be home with that beautiful woman of his, making love to her, going to Vegas and doing all that." One of my deacons said that about me. I didn't find out until after he died. If I had known that, I would have kicked his butt off the board. It's ridiculous what these people going to church are doing and how they think and how they live. Yeah. The pastor would visit your grandmother's house because that's what a pastor was supposed to do. Visit your grandma, see the grandkids, make sure that if that boy or that girl was going astray, he straightened out right in the living room and say, who's this thug you going with? I see you, girl, bouncing your behind out there. You need to straighten up and fly right. And then if she spoke back to the pastor, grandma would lay it on her like she knew she should have got slapped. But so-called pastor friend of mine told me I wouldn't dare invite you to come to my church and speech. I told him, thank you. Now I know not to ever ask you. And I would have loved to visit there this Christmas and been the guest speaker in his church, in his mega church. But he's afraid that I tell them the truth. And if he ever looks at this, he knows who he is and who I'm talking about. I'm not scared of him, God, or nobody. And I do this because I'm no longer a pastor. I don't have a pulpit. But you read those comments on that side of the thing. You read all them comments and ask yourself, Pastor, could you have a discussion like this? Pastors always putting on these seminars, how to make money, how to be successful. Why don't you tell them this? How to tell the damn truth. I know a young man, I'm not going to give you his name. Some of my friends know this young man. This young man would not be in the place that he's in today if he had told the truth. And it's not about feeling sorry for nobody. It's about telling the damn truth. This is the way Jesus put it, right? Since we want to quote him. He said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Or have Sunday dinner there. Yes, the pastor would eat there at your grandmother's house. Yes. And your grandfather was a reverend too, so you know how it is. You know, when I was a kid growing up in church, when they would have dinners and everything, they would feed the pastors first. And I understood that. The pastor preached Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, he goes by a parishioner's house. And it was a blessed thing for the parishioner to cook dinner and say, the pastor's coming by tonight for dinner. And the kids would be on the best behavior, and she'd cook her best meal and make a little plate for the pastor, and she'd be so happy. Pastor didn't ask for no money, but beware them pastors that come by and say, oh, God bless you, Sister Smith. God bless you. You know, we missed you in service this morning, but you could write that check and put it in my hand and make me a plate because I can't stay, but I take you with me. Oh, praise God, Sister Smith. Soon as he get home, he put that plate in the garbage. That's how much respect they have for you. Beware of a man that is after what God gave you in order for you to be successful. That's what I've always believed as a man of God. And I've had pastors of churches tell me, John, you will never have anything. And I said, excuse me, I didn't get in this in order to have something. I got in this in order to give something. Mark says money is not meant to be worshiped. You can say that again, but use as a tool to uplift and empower the community. That's right. And when you see people like Mark Ridley Thomas, county supervisor, he worked for the city of LA as a city councilman for the district, hands full of theftery, bribery, theft, embellishing his son. If you could let my son teach a class at SC. Wait a minute, I taught in college. I didn't ask nobody for that. All they had to do was look up my transcripts. This man wasn't qualified to do that. But when you think you can do that, and what was Mark Ridley Thomas before he became all that? A pastor. And I remember when he got into it, because I'm right here in Los Angeles. And I said, what is that man doing leaving the best job that God could ever give a human being to get into politics when that ain't going to do nothing but corrupt? And it did. Be careful where you're headed in life, because all you got is one life. And to end this up, you just have to say it the way it is. I don't know about heaven, and especially this burning charcoal hell, but I know that if you live right and tell the truth and respect other people and respect the system that you're living in, God will bless your life for your days. And don't worry, if you get sick, you're supposed to. I'm going to get sick of something. I have congenital heart failure. I have that. Have the surgery on the prostate. You're going to get old and get ill. So don't think you're going to live to be 95 and never hurt. In this life, what does the Bible say? In this life, you will have tribulation. You will have tribulation. And if a preacher tells you you'll never have it, he's lying. I just heard this week that a brother that I met in the association that I associate with died of prostate cancer this week. Heartbreaking to know that. Some of us get healed, some of us don't. God is the same God. Relish in his goodness, tell the truth while there's light in the day. God bless you, and thank you for coming to my YouTube page. And tell your friends about this. I love you. Thank you, Mark. And Womanati left the page. Love you guys tremendously. Take care now.